Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I'm on fire because I've already listened to my Ruthless podcast for the Thursday, which brought to me the 5 issues on which Democrats are going to self-immolate. Josh Holmes is host of the Ruthless podcast, along with 3 other fellows. Josh joins me. How are you, Josh?
I'm doing very well, Hugh. How are you?
I loved your episode today. I must tell you, I thought
thanks.
It was brilliant. And in fact, I think it's got a level of depth you may not even be aware of how good it was, because one of the things you did, I'm gonna give a little bit of a spoiler here. You ran through the 5 things that the Democrats have wrapped their axle around as they've fallen apart, and I'll let you go through them first. Number 5 is Tesla terrorism, right? That came in 5th. That's only the 5th worst thing.
It's totally right, Hugh. I mean, look, here's the thing that we've seen, and this is really goes to Donald Trump's superpower, which is not just getting things done and doing all the things this administration is doing, but because of Trump derangement syndrome as it exists, he's gotten Democrats to embrace things that if you told them 10 years ago they were doing, they would have lost their minds. They would have been like, no chance we're going to do that. The Tesla one is a great place to start, right? They're passing electric vehicle mandates 2 years ago, telling you have to drive a Tesla. And now they're burning down dealerships. And you've got the former vice presidential candidate calling on people to try to bankrupt the thing. It is the most out of touch, completely ridiculous activism point of view that they're trying to sell the mainstream.
And it led to the arrest today of 3 terrorists, each of whom faced 20 years in prison in Salem, Oregon, Loveland, Colorado, and Charleston, South Carolina. Pam Bondi's not fooling around. They went and found these people. No. They arrested them. They're going to jail. Number 4 is opposition to deporting the gang members. I covered that a lot, so I'm going to skip to number 3. Men playing women's sports. That's actually, I would call it the gender issue. And Josh, I don't know if you have a pen, but I want you to write this down so you can remember 20 years from now. I told you about this case before it showed up. Foote, F-O-O-T-E, versus Ludlow School Committee. First Circuit decision that came down in February. 2 Biden judges who've got a combined 4 years on the bench and an Obama judge ruled that it was okay for a school district to conceal a gender transition from parents who had specifically asked them not to do so.
Insane.
And they ignore precedent. I teach con law. They just ignore binding Supreme Court precedent. It's crazy judges because of the gender issue.
Well, I mean, look, that's a whole different kettle of fish that we're dealing with the judges and the activism decisions that we're seeing out of Obama appointees and Biden appointees. But look, this issue boils down to every time a Democrat retires, Hugh, every time. It doesn't matter if they're a liberal or they're a center of the road Democrat, whatever they are, they retire and they're like, oh, yeah, no, that was ridiculous. I can't believe we all thought that men should play women's sports. But while they're in the game, every single one of them does. And you saw that Senate vote last month. They had an opportunity to weigh in. All of them. All of them. All of the Democrats.
When this case makes it to this, makes headlines. It was brought to my attention by one of my law students. Every parent in America is going to say, what? They did what?
Yes, exactly.
It's one of those issues where just build the Republican Party, give us some more gifts. Number 2, you point out Hamas supporters going to Hezbollah funerals and Jai Payal talking about Khalil claiming it's First Amendment. Smug is right. They're trying to continue to weaponize empathy. It doesn't work. But I'm rushing because I'm going to blow off USAID. Your analysis of Chuck Schumer getting played off of The View is the funniest dang thing I've heard in a long time. But I am sympathetic to him. What's he going to do? He's got this iron triangle of gender, Hamas, and terrorists, or I can pretend to be against billionaires. What's he going to do, Josh?
You know what you do? You know what you do if you're a real leader is that you stare down that element of your base and realize you could never sell that nationally. And you decide that if you want a real Democratic Party that has any chance of having a competition for president or Senate seats or anything else, you're going to have to move away from the insanity. He can't do that. He's had no practice at that. In his entire career, he has had a very easy ride at trying to identify with the furthest reaches of the progressive left. And so now he knows what to do. He knew, like last week, he knew they had to pass a continuing resolution. But he amped it up like they were going to stop the whole thing before he realized that he couldn't. And then it just built expectations to a point where the progressive base thought they got the rug pulled out from underneath them. This is the hallmarks, Hugh. Mark my words. This is the hallmarks of the end of a leadership campaign if he can't turn that around. Because
I agree with you. In fact, I had a moment of piercing clarity that you brought to me today when you said, you've been doing this a while, but not as long as I've been doing it. And you said this is the worst argument of your life. You've heard a Democrat make the worst argument. And I thought to myself, is it as bad as anything? Actually, Walter Mondale in the 1984 campaign said, I'm going to raise your taxes. And I told you. And so I said, yeah, that's on this level. That's how bad it was. But at the same time, if you're going to pick, I'm going to go with the billionaires and hate on the small businessmen, or I'm going to go with gender and terrorists and giving my money to AID, they don't have a way out. They're trapped.
They don't have a way out. They are trapped, and they're trapped in an 80-20 circle. 80% of America thinks that they're absolutely insane, that they've lost their minds. And just by virtue of Donald Trump choosing this set of issues, they've put them in a place where they actually can't relate to the American people. Chuck Schumer saying, well, here's the mentality of the Republican Party. They think, why is the government stealing all my money? Well, I don't know. That's basically anybody who pays taxes. You're wondering what you get for it. It's certainly not trans studies in Tanzania, which is what Elon Musk and Doge is uncovering. But that's what they're defending here. And that,
but he's so panicked. You and I have been on panels together, and we wear our little earpieces like I've got mine in right now. And the guy says 5, 10, 20, and you get off, right? You don't have to, the music does not spin you off. You shut up. Chuck couldn't stop talking because he knew he hadn't landed a point.
He had Whoopi Goldberg with both hands in the air, like, please stop. Even The View thinks this is a bad take.
That's sometimes what you guys do is too easy. I mean, today, it was just too easy. Now, will they get their act together? The mayor of Boston is out there saying, we are not going to listen to you, Donald Trump. I'm going to run as a sanctuary city mayor. How do they stop the free fall? They don't have a parachute.
They can't, because the incentive structure in the modern Democratic Party, Hugh, is all hewing off the left, right? It's not just the people who are running for re-election or doing everything else. It's all the staff and all of the permanent class in Washington, D.C. When they're not in the White House, they're all working for 501c4s that are paid for by a bunch of billionaires like Hansburg Weiss or George Soros, who think that all these things are a good idea. We ought to take over college campuses and have pro-Hamas rallies. That's what they work for at this point. And so the incentive structure is misaligned with electoral success. I couldn't be happier about it, but as a country, it serves us extremely poorly to have.
If you're working for John Ossoff, we got 1 minute.
Oh, yeah.
If you're working for John Ossoff in Georgia, and you get this Foote v. Ludlow School Committee, and somebody asks you whether or not parents have a right to know that you're ideologically changing their child's gender, what's he going to say?
He's going to be twisted up like a pretzel. He's not going to know how to get out of it, because the easy answer, the one that everybody knows, everybody in Georgia knows, is the one he can't say. And so he'll spend a couple of weeks ruminating about it and trying to figure out, and then he'll give some very inauthentic answer one way or the other, but actually granting credence to the other side. It's going to be a disaster for this guy.
I know, and I hope your buddy Brian Kemp is our next senator. Josh, I
do
got
too.
to tell you, today's Ruthless podcast is a banger. I know you say that every week, but this one is a banger. I urge everyone to go and download it and listen to it and enjoy it, because, boy, are the Democrats trapped in a crashing plane. Josh Holmes. Follow him at Holmes Josh on X. Follow me in the next segment.